3,
Two,
1.
Monkey bars.
Welcome back to Thick and Butter Podcast. My name is Alex,
My name is Jesse.
aka Thick,
And butter.
and this is episode
89.
89. Wow, okay.
Almost 90.
Oh my god, it's almost another 10.
Almost another
That's
10.
crazy, man.
It's been a decade
Crazy
in thick
town.
and butter time. Are we? That means we're both 89 years old if we are in thick
89.
and butter in thick and butter time.
Bro, can you imagine? Just think when we're like 89 years old and we're still doing this. Just
I
think
hope
about
so.
what a conversation that would be.
You remember when the robots invaded?
Our both retirement homes.
How many aliens have you had sex with?
My nurse gave me applesauce today. It was so good.
I hope I don't have to go to a retirement home.
I hope not either. I hope I have kids that will take care of me when I'm old as shit.
I want to be like Picasso. You know, Picasso died when he was 91 years old, and he
with it?
He was painting 3 hours before he died.
Good.
Yeah, that's what I want.
You don't want to get too old. Like, you know,
No.
like you don't want to get so old that I don't want to get so old that like I have to have people wipe my ass.
No,
I don't want to be a burden on anybody. You know?
Yeah, me too.
I want to be with it, and I want to whatever that time is. You know.
Yeah,
Like,
I
hopefully I'll be ready.
think I'd be fine with 80. 90 would be cool, and 100 I'd be a little bit. I'd be a little bit nervous.
You just look like a goblin. You're just like, where am I? Who are you? You know, like, I don't want to be that old, man.
Well, I mean, by the time,
Bro, just think about this really quick, and you're gonna laugh.
Yeah.
Think about just look at take a really good look at my face. Okay?
I'm looking, dude. I'm looking.
Think about me when I'm 95 years old.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's the thing with your face. Your face is either like you're either. I think the opposite's going to happen with you. I think you're going to like be ageless because you're going to like just look like have this face until like you're 90. So you're going to like you look so good. Everyone's going to be saying that to you all the time, dude. You look so good for 97.
I do have good genes. Because my grandpa on my dad's side.
Yeah.
And I like is he's with it and he's healthy and he looks good.
Yeah.
He's like 75, so
yeah, I would put my bets on. Also, like your peer group, like slowly, everyone's gonna turn into goblins. So your peer group is like they can't match with you, man. I think you're gonna win the race.
Like 80.
Yeah. What's this, old nerds? Check out this kick clip.
Check out this kick flip. What's been going on, dude? How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. It snowed here. That's been really cool.
There's a lot of snow. It kind of all melted today. But
yeah, everyone seems to have been getting like a
spring now.
Is it actually getting warm?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, unbelievable! Yeah. I cannot believe this. I cannot believe that we're talking about the weather.
What a crazy winter, though. You see what was going on in Texas?
Yeah, like, well, people are freezing.
Yeah. They're okay now, but yeah, that was fucking wild. I had like a bunch of family, in Texas.
Yeah, are they okay?
Yeah, they were fine. But yeah, I think they lost power. I think one of my aunts lost power for a little bit.
Yikes!
But it was like fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, some people did not have a good running water because Texas, they don't know what the fuck they're doing down there. So when snow happens, everything shuts down. Not like Think about COVID, but like worse than COVID, because like Giant Eagle, like or Giant Eagle, grocery stores are not even open. You know,
Yeah.
like nothing's open. Gas stations, couldn't even get gas. Like, bro,
Yeah, it seemed
what
like
the fuck?
it seemed like a hellscape down there, and I
It's not
saw that
good.
like the reason
So
for it
much
was
snow,
that
bro.
yeah, they got like a heavy dousing of snow too. It wasn't like just like a
Yeah.
snow and Texas panicked. It was like a serious amount of
And
snow.
people don't think global warming's real.
Yeah, seriously.
Come on, guys.
That's one of those things, you know, I was listening to that mushroom guy, Paul Stamets.
Oh yeah,
Stamets?
I need to listen to that.
He's a really interesting dude,
I just
but
saw that one clip.
story
Yeah,
crazy.
crazy,
Crazy.
crazy.
He's a Joe Rogan guest if anyone's
Yeah,
curious. So he has 2 episodes, both of them are good.
yeah.
Um he was talking about the fact that bees, like the save the bees thing, is the number one thing among Democrats and Republicans that we agree on. So it's like if anywhere you go,
Yeah.
most people will be like, yeah, dude, save the bees. Which to me is
Save
like
the bees, though.
it's like obviously save the bees. And I was thinking about that. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. But I was also thinking it's like, well, global warming also seems like it would make sense as people being like, yeah, I'm on board with
Yeah.
this, but they're not. So
People are
I'm
just
glad people are on board
weird.
with bees.
Yeah.
At least we got bees.
I got a couple things I wanted to like just mention. So
Yeah.
first of all, um, Daft Punk retired.
Oh, rest
I just
in
want to say,
peace.
I just want
We
to
love
say,
you.
fucking love Daft Punk. If you don't know who Daft Punk is, fuck off.
Yeah.
But-
Well, honestly, you have some. You're gonna have a fun time ahead of you if you
yeah.
don't know who Daft Punk is, because you get to listen to
yeah.
Daft Punk.
Honestly, yeah, dude, we got a lot of shit to catch up on, but
Just listen to any Daft Punk, and you're in for a good
you
time,
haven't
man.
like not going like hearing like Get Lucky. You're like, this is a good song. Like this is a good song. Like, yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
But
that was kind
yeah,
of that
dude,
was
awesome. I mean, what an
yeah.
amazing fucking duo. One of the greatest, they made some of the greatest music of all time. Period. Um, just listen to Discovery, and you'll see why.
You'll
Fucking,
understand.
they're amazing. So I just want to say, like, fucking love Daft Punk. See you later. I have a hard time believing that this is the last time we'll ever like hear from any of them, like Guy or Thomas.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that. Um, my buddy was made me like laugh because he was texting me about it. And, I've been listening to Daft Punk all week and
Yeah.
into I just want to shout out like one of the more like underrated things that I don't think a lot of people. I know like a couple of my friends hadn't listened to it until I kind of pointed them to it. Is the Alive 2007, which is the live album that they recorded.
Yeah, you've told me about
That is
that before.
absolutely incredible. It's actually like one of my favorite Daft Punk things ever. If you want to really get the gist of how amazing these two were just as musicians and showmanship and fucking amazing. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Um,
They're some
but
of the good ones.
I was pointing that out and like, he was saying that because they have two live albums. They have a live 1997, which is also insane. It's like a 45-minute DJ set.
Yeah.
And then they have a live 2007. And he was saying like, what if they come back in 2027 and
Yeah.
it's the One More Time tour. It's
Oh,
called One More Time. It's
nice.
like, yeah, like now it's like fuck you, man. Now I'm like,
Want that to
man, I hope they
happen.
do a reunion tour or something.
Yeah.
What's also interesting too is I was thinking about like I wonder why they just decided to call it quits. And I also don't know this also could mean this might not be like the end of Daft Punk. Like they just might not ever put music out as Daft Punk ever again. But they've been behind the scenes with like Starboy, and I hope they could just. It would be cool to just see them do behind the scenes and just give us more Star Boys, where they
Yeah.
just produce for other people and collaborate. Maybe that's what they're planning on doing. I don't know.
I'm hoping that what this is a creative growth moment for them, because I imagine artists like them. It's a hard thing for me to believe. Here's an example: Hayao Miyazaki has retired so many times, and every time he's
Yeah.
come out of
Well,
retirement,
Quentin Tarantino,
because
he's talking about retirement for 20 years.
which is like, it's fine to retire if you want to, but like a lot of times these artists, they don't, it's like retiring is not really in the game, you
Yeah.
don't really retire from being an artist. It's a hard thing to do,
Yeah.
because it's a part of your lifestyle, not so
Right.
much of a vocation.
Yeah.
So I imagine that what Daft Punk is doing, what I would guess is that both of them are feeling like that they need a creative change or something, and that they have a lot of ideas, and I'm hoping for like an
Probably.
explosion from each of them individually, whether it's just like producing other people or their
Scoring
solo albums and
movies,
stuff,
most likely,
because
or something like that.
I can't imagine what it's like to be Daft Punk. And even though like you're the best and you're Daft Punk, you probably don't care that much of what people think. The pressure to release a Daft Punk album
Yes.
is insane. That's
Well, because they
crazy.
don't have they only have 5 albums. They only have
Yeah.
Homework, Discovery, Human After All, um, and Random Access Memories. I feel like I'm missing one.
You
Discovery?
said,
No, I said all of them.
yeah.
But, and then the live albums. I definitely count the live albums for sure. So they probably have like 7. And then if you count like the Tron Legacy soundtrack, which is very
Yeah.
cool by the way, it's maybe they have like 8. But they don't have that much music in 30 years. 8 albums in 30 years. That's pretty. It's not. That's like very like album every like fucking
Yeah. It's very
5
selective.
years.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and the pressure of following up with like Homework changed the music basically as we know it kind of changed with
Yeah.
Homework because it was like this. It was an electronic album that no one had like ever heard before. It was like house, but like peak house, right?
Yeah.
And then Discovery. I mean, literally, I don't even have to say. I mean, I don't even have to say anything. I mean,
Yeah.
it is one of the most
Yeah.
iconic albums ever recorded. And after that, Human After All is like, it's okay. There's some hits, but it's not. When they follow that up with Random Access Memories, which is like this, you know, almost opus and some. It's so
Yeah.
many. It's a combination of all their influences that they
Which
had.
which
Funk,
honestly,
disco.
that album's so good. It makes it feel okay that they ended on
Totally.
that.
Yeah, it's a great. Well, that's my point. Is I thought it was. It's a great swan song because
Yeah.
it's kind of a combination of all their influences
But
and everything leading up to that point. You know what I
but
mean?
it's also so crazy because Daft Punk has just been a staple in our lives for our entire existence,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
and Random Access Memories came out in high school, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
remember.
Yeah.
First time I heard it. Yeah.
I remember it coming out and my friends listening to it, but me not listening to it. And I was late to listen to it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's such a weird thing to think about, because Daft Punk sort of seems like Mozart or something to me, as like just a staple in music names,
100%. Oh my god. Oh
and
my
it's
god.
like,
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's just like
they're
you
as
always,
iconic as they could get in our
yeah.
generation for sure.
But
Man.
and so you think that the only way they would end is if they died, right? So it's like that's one of the
Yeah.
things that's sort of like distressing about them breaking up, because I think that's mentally what I'm thinking is like
Right.
them breaking up is like them dying. It's like, no, they're not dead.
No. I know.
They're just
Right?
breaking up
Yeah,
from
I
Daft
know.
Punk.
I think, yeah, it's just, I think, when you're that size, I mean, they,
Also, it's the alter ego thing. So the alter egos are
yeah,
kind of dead. That's kind of
right, yeah,
sad,
right,
but
yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just wanted to, like, mention that, because, like, it was
yeah.
pretty historical. I mean, a legacy is, they will fucking carry on for years and years and years to come,
When we're 89 and in our old home person's home, we'll be talking about, remember when Daft Punk?
Yeah, I mean, it will. It's like, well, get lucky. Yes, I will still be bumping those songs until I'm fucking 104. You know.
Yeah.
Um, but
As
yeah,
hard as our asses will go, they'll be going to the
but I
BPM of
but
Daft
yeah,
Punk.
man, I've been listening to all their records. You know, just to be like. It's also like the blow too isn't that hard because I only became a fan when it ran across everything out. Like
Hmm.
obviously, right? Because and also like I was waiting, like I read somewhere where some people are not that like because they had to wait so long for a new Daft Punk album, and then for them to just kind of fade away like this, they're not that. They're like, okay, well, you know, it's they take so long and they're so mysterious that like it would be different if like I don't know, they release so much music like every year and then they just stop and you're like, oh, that's not what I'm used to. But
Yeah.
you're kind of used to being like, where's Daft Punk? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
but it's sad that they're like, hey, no more, we're out,
Yeah. But did they release anything in between Random Access Memories and now? Have they
No.
released
Well,
anything?
that's what I'm saying. They work with, the weekend. They work with
Right.
like
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
other people, so they were kind of producing behind the scenes.
That's such an
So,
interesting thing, though. I would love to just. I'm sure they're just so interesting to talk to. Everyone wants to talk to Daft
oh
Punk.
my
I'm
god. Well,
100% certain. But
yeah.
that's such an interesting thing to be in that process of like not necessarily be on a project. Like, were they trying and it just wasn't working, or were they just like, is their vibe kind of like they work? Because I imagine for me, especially with Random Access Memory, that time period where there was no album, I 100% believe they were working on Random Access Memory. So I always kind of
Yeah,
had it
sure.
that they were like working on something, but it's like, were they working on stuff and it was just like, this isn't up to snuff, and they just decided it's like, it's time to move on.
Well, you
This isn't
also,
as
yeah,
good
I
as it
mean,
needs to be.
we don't really know what happened. I mean, like, also with a group, I mean, they're not young. I mean, they started 30 years ago. I mean, they're
Yeah.
probably well into their 50s or maybe 60. Like
Yeah.
they're not young dudes anymore. And when you
That's
put
a good
out when
point.
you're Daft Punk and you put out an album, you can't just put it out an album and just sit back. I mean, there's a lot of touring. There's a lot of stuff that comes along with putting out a record. Of that size.
Yeah.
On a record label. So I don't know. Maybe they're just like, listen, man, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't want
I
to go
wondered
through this whole cycle again.
I wonder too is that like Daft Punk has been so influential on electronic music, but electronic music is so crazy now. I wonder if they were just like accepting of it's just like
That could be very true.
Daft Punk is it had its heyday, and now let's let these other youngins
That's
take
very true.
over.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, oh yeah, it could. It probably, I would assume, is a combination of both.
Yeah,
That they were like,
100%, 100%.
okay, I don't think that we could. I guarantee they're working on something. And they're like, it's not working. They don't feel because they obviously take much care into what they put out,
Yeah,
considering the gaps in between albums and how long they take to make something. And when it does come out, it's has a concept. It has a unique. It's obviously extremely well thought out, and so they probably really thought out this them leaving too. It wasn't
yeah,
like you know they definitely know what they're doing. It's just sad that the robots are gone, but
yeah. It is sad. I think it's bittersweet ultimately because it was so great. And
yeah,
everything has to come to an end, and it's nice to see them end incredibly.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is
exactly,
kind
yeah,
of an
yeah.
awesome thing.
You rather have them end on a high note than 'cause you hear about all these bands who kind of whimper out and kind of just keep going until like there's just nothing left.
Like the Rolling Stones.
Like the Rolling Stones, they're still going to this day.
Which I love the
Which
Rolling
is also
Stones.
like impressive too on some regard, right?
Yeah. No, no,
But
yeah,
I definitely
totally.
think that it is uh more interesting. Daft Punk, this would only they are so this is the only way that they would go out, not put out an album for years and then just come out and be like, we're
Yeah.
done. Like
You
that's
think
such a Daft Punk way of doing it.
you
In
think
their
that
style.
they would be as like volatile as Death Grips and just come back? You think they would do that?
It's happened before. I mean, one of my favorite things was another amazing electronic group, LCD Sound System.
Oh
They
yeah.
were they started in the '90s, but
Sick.
released kind of similar to Daft Punk in a way, revolutionized kind of progressive, house and stuff like that. And then they announced their retirement with "This Is Happening," which is a
Yeah.
amazing album. And they had a farewell tour. They went on tour, and it was like, this is it, this is
Yeah.
it. And then 10 years later, they put out a underwhelming as fuck, follow up record. 8 years later, or whatever. So it's possible. It's totally possible. Like the
Yeah.
guy and Congress like get together and in
Bang
10
out an
years and be
album.
like, or have all this unreleased stuff and like, okay, let's put together a compilation or something and put it out.
I think that's what I would prefer. That second option, a posthumous like Daft Punk release of all of the B
I could
sides
see
of
that happening
things.
for sure.
I
Because
would want. I
you
want
know,
that.
interesting too. Because I wonder if what their label, uh, what their relationship with the label is, because they like own that music.
Yeah.
The label might decide to put it out or not, but I feel like Daft
Yeah.
Punk is too big of a profile that
Okay.
they're not going to let that happen. But
Oh, okay. Here's kind of a change in topic a little bit
they're
because
also
this is
not
me.
dead, so it
Yeah.
couldn't
Right. Right.
happen.
But here's another thought that I just had, which is like what I this is a fresh opinion, like fresh off the cutting block. We'll
Yeah,
see how good this is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that since we have
Always
the
good.
internet
New
now,
thoughts. New thoughts that are not thought out.
okay, new
Always
thought,
good.
new thought, colon, here we go. uh, so you know how we have the internet now. It's been around for a while.
A little bit, yeah.
It's pretty integrated into our culture at this
Uh-huh.
point. And I'm thinking about this shit with like Daft Punk and Prince and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this idea of how what's finished and unfinished, with like lo-fi challenging all of this and all these other genres sort of challenging what like quality or good means.
Mm-hmm.
um like I feel like since we have the space, it would be sick if we just got, or movies that were unreleased. So we have all these like this back catalog
Yeah.
of B-sides of artists of like
Puppy.
Prince,
Rock Hampton
Puppy, fucking
album.
Puppy. Like
Yeah.
what wouldn't it be sick if eventually there was like this back catalog where people just started uploading all that shit to the internet, and we could listen to that? Because I feel like it's a massive
leaks. There's definitely leaks, I mean, like there's a lot of like famous like unreleased Kanye music that is going to leak online and stuff.
yeah.
That would be funny as shit, like Rock Hampton like uploaded Puppy to some like random fucking website.
Yeah.
Like, out there.
Because part of me kind of feels like it's not like, I don't necessarily think that there's hidden masterpieces within there, but it's like I love these artists so much. I just want to hear everything you have done in your process.
Yeah, and some artists are different, right? Because some artists like want to like put out like Frank Zappa. He has like how many albums does he have? He has like
Gazillion and
he
5.
puts out everything he fucking makes. But there's people like Daft Punk, Prince that are very aware of crafting something that will stand the test of time, right? That will
Yeah.
just continue
Well,
on
okay.
forever. But,
Well, what about this? What about this? What about like with the case with Prince? Maybe this is more of the scenario. Or like movies, like let's say when George Lucas dies, can we finally fucking get the original cuts of Star Wars? Like, please? Or can we get all those albums of Prince? Or Beck was talking about how he has all these back catalogs of music that he never released and all these things. It's like, how awesome would it be if we could see all of the music that Mozart ever tried? Not because there's something genius in it, but just because we could see it. Yeah. So it's like,
you kind of, as an artist, I feel like you might want to leave people wanted that, right?
While they're alive, I would say.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
oh,
that's
yeah.
reasonable while
I
they're
mean,
alive.
if I was an artist, I would definitely want when I pass on to have things released. I would.
Uh,
I think what they're doing with Prince, what
yeah.
they're doing with Prince is really good. Because
Yeah, I like that. I
they,
want them to do that more.
yeah, because like that Prince, they put out an album like a couple years ago. Prince album called Originals. It was like it was amazing. It was
Wow,
like
that
a
was a
fucking,
couple years ago.
it
Wow.
was like a Prince album.
Yeah.
But
That
they
was the pianos and stuff, right?
No, 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 no. That was amazing. That was
Yeah.
incredible. That was like a demo thing. But no, like a couple years ago, they released an album called Originals. That was an album that he just
Wow.
fucking made. That was in a
Wow.
vault. It is produced as fuck. It's like a Prince album. It's like a,
That's crazy.
but the myth behind Prince too is that he would record like albums before he actually made the album. So he has
Yeah.
like vaults of albums that he just never released, but it's all got their estate if they want to put it out and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
That's an interesting thing with content and things. Can you
they
imagine
also want
how
to make money too, so they don't want to
yeah.
dump everything of an iconic artist just out. They want to make some money. So they're
Yeah.
spacing it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you imagine how crazy it is when all of this stuff, what music is going to be like when all of this stuff is like Creative Commons, you
I
know?
know,
Do
right?
you know Mickey Mouse? Can you imagine how sick it would be if Steamboat Willie was Creative Commons?
Yeah,
Can you
people like
imagine
fucking
the
chop it
shit
up.
would
People
do
chop it
with
up, make
Steamboat
fucking
Willie?
crazy ass. Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting.
I want to see what the world will do with Steamboat Willie. Come on, man. Don't you want to know what they're going to do with it? I would kill for that.
Just fucked up versions of Steamboat Willie.
Or like you could sample, I don't know, you can just sample all kinds of shit. Cuz I guess
Yeah,
it's complicated because you can't sample classical music because of the performance problem. But now
right.
into the future later, we have recorded performances of shit and people could
Yeah,
do that. They could sample like Kendrick, they could sample rapping. So we have rappers with samples of rapping, like rapping over this Creative Commons. You know what I
yeah,
mean? That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
That's
You can do that.
insane.
Yeah,
The future. They'll
you can
probably
do that. Yeah, it's crazy. The future is crazy.
I
Um,
think I think what I would like if I make art that makes an impact. It would be cool. I would have to think about this a little bit more, but it'd be cool if when I died, I would say this is all Creative Commons when I die, you know? And if I made enough
yeah,
money
that's
for my
actually
family,
yeah, that'd
I,
be dope.
I think I'd be
Well, I
into
mean, if
that.
you pass off, I mean, if you were an artist, I mean, I think you'd be okay.
Also,
Yeah.
everyone can make if
Well, yeah.
hopefully okay, there's two things
That is
about that.
interesting, though. That's a pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Just to like when in your contract, you sign that you're like, when
Once
I
I'm dead.
die, all of this stuff is Creative Commons, and anybody can use any of it. For
I want to aspire to that. That's
That's
what I
kind of
want to
cool.
do.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I
And I
think
think I think there's a beauty in watching people take what you make and make something just absolutely whack out. I would
I
love to see like an electronic artist like take. I mean, you can't do this. You just can't make money off of it. But like taking Discovery and just making a chopped and screwed, fucking fucked up,
yeah.
distorted. I don't know, like weirdo version of that iconic album. There's
Yeah, cuz
people, there's people have done that, but you can't make money off of it. They usually put it on free, like mixtapes. Like a great example is one of my favorite things ever is called the Gray album, and what it is Danger Mouse, who's a very famous producer, not so much anymore, but in the
yeah.
2000s, he made a mashup album of the Beatles' White Album and Jay-Z's Black Album. So what he did was
Nice.
he took the instrumentals of the White Album, chopped up, made beats out of the White Album, Beatles' White Album, and put Jay-Z's
That's
Black
sick.
Album off. Dude, it's fucking. You should listen to it. It's fucking awesome. It's bad ass as fuck. But you know,
You
the
can't make
only
money
way
off
on the
that.
internet that could happen, where
Yeah.
people and it blew up. That's and people were downloading it, but and it ultimately helped his career because he actually got like producers like artists being like, bro, I heard that fucking thing you
That
made,
was
man. I'd
awesome.
love to work with you. So like it worked for him. But yeah, there's people you can do that with the internet now. It's complicated with sampling and stuff, obviously. But
It's hard because it's another phase where hip hop has really challenged what, like, when something, the originality of things,
yeah,
right,
right.
with this use
Yeah.
of sampling. Because I was of the part, I was of the mindset where it's just like it's not real artistry, to take like the
Yeah.
sampling way back before I started listening to hip hop. And I
Right.
just think that's so wrong now to think
Yeah.
about. There's so much artistry in sampling in like the
Oh
chopped
yeah.
and screwed stuff, or even
Yeah.
like oh,
I mean,
what's it fucking called?
Daft Punk. A lot of their shit is
Yes.
sampled. A lot of their. I mean, they obviously have. It's it's a combination of both. Obviously. Um. You know,
I
synth
wish
work and
I
it's
wish
also sampling.
the problem is that you're never going to get around people feeling like cheated about like their work being used for profit, for people who do like methods like that, because
Yeah.
there is a degree of like that, like the argument's valid no matter how creatively you reuse a sample. It's still like that's still me playing guitar. I should get credit in that, but that's
Right.
like the
But they
problem.
do, The
Yeah.
problem is like when they like you get lawsuits when you don't do that. There's a lot of
but the
artists, get cleared samples and
I
charge.
think it's a
It's fine.
deeper I think it's a deeper problem, because what it is like it's the capitalist mindset around all of this,
Yeah, right.
where it's like if we could just appreciate that artists being artists, and they're like you taking my work to make something new, that should be like a celebration. But we
Yeah,
have to
right.
bring money into it about like this makes me like Kanye out single makes $1 billion, and you
Yeah,
have to think about it through that lens. And it's like, oh my god, that's like it. It's such a perverted way of looking at this artistic like rediscovery
yeah,
of like a sound.
yeah,
It
totally, yeah.
just sucks because of how corporate it is.
Yeah,
But
I
it,
mean, part of it I understand it, right? On one hand, because Kanye, for example, got. I mean, let's pick any song. I don't know. I wonder. Also, grabs was I wonder what you know.
yeah.
What it means. I don't know what that sample is, but I mean that whole thing, the sample of that song makes it what it is, right? The way that
Yeah.
he chopped it. I don't know what the original is, but the way he chopped it, the way that he, Kanye made this amazing song out of it. A lot of that goes to him, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if that artist did not make that song for Kanye to chop it up, and Kanye makes millions of dollars off this song, on one hand, I think he should get his paycheck and or have some agreement. Like, I mean, I would hope. I mean, I think he does.
Yeah.
Obviously, he does. Kanye calls the artist if they're alive or the estate and says, "Hey, can I use the sample? I'll give you,
Yeah.
percentage of whatever the song makes or whatever." And like, I like the artist agreement. I just hope that's the whole problem with sampling. You hope that there's an agreement between both artists that, hey, can I use this sample in your song? Yes, yeah, absolutely. But the problem is there's a lot of people who sample things and don't get clearance and don't
Yeah.
tell and use it in a way uh that you can theoretically profit off of some song for just like you know rapping over their instrumental that they
But
do.
it also just sucks that you have to get clearance. I think that that's honestly a terrible thing, You have to ask for
Yeah, I
permission
mean, you don't
to
have
make
to.
something.
You don't have to. I mean, it's just whatever you. Yeah, well, the problem is that a lot of these songs that are sampled are part of record labels and contracts and things like that that make money. So there's just so much
Right.
business involved in
And
it.
that's
That's why.
exactly that's the tragedy. That's
Well,
exactly
yeah,
the
yeah, it
tragedy
is
I'm
a
talking
tragedy
about.
for sure. But I mean, that's what's cool about the internet. For what I just
Yeah.
explained, you can have this crazy fucking gossip album that you would never hear on Spotify or
And you can
any.
still
You'd
hear it.
never hear
Yeah.
it. Still hear
Yeah.
it, and like um, and sampling is such an art form. It's an incredible art form that is still going on to this day, and I don't think it will ever end. I think it will. I think the idea of sampling is so cool because there's so many layers to it. Because like you can even look
Yeah.
at like a Kanye sample and hear it. Like for example, Stevie Wonder. Kanye samples Stevie Wonder a bunch of times. And here's the beautiful thing about sampling, right? huge Kanye West fan. Huge Kanye West fan. When I heard this, I can't. He's sampled Stevie Wonder a couple times. I can't think of it right now, but when I heard this specific song, I was like, "What is that sample?" And I found out
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder. I'm like, "Oh, what's this album on?" Songs of the Key of Life. Oh, this happens to be one of the greatest albums ever fucking recorded.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I was introduced to that. So Maglib, Wu Tang Clan. There's so JPEG. There's a lot of these um, artists who sample things that I've actually discovered their music. So there's
Yeah.
actual a I remember seeing an interview with Rodell from Brockhampton, who's the main producer, him talking about this and him saying that sampling has brought me to so much great music that like I hear these songs and these records and I'm like, whoa, what is that sample? And you go discover, oh wow, fucking you know,
Yeah, that's a
Eddie
great
Jones is
point.
fucking badass. He's
That's super
awesome.
cool.
And
That's super
so,
cool.
so that's the thing that's like really gross to me whenever like an artist sues somebody for a sample, for example, or something like that, because it's like at the end of the day, they love your work and they're making something out of it. They're not like they're acknowledging your work in a certain way, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like sad to see. Like it's really sad when there's like lawsuits involved. I know like Kendrick was involved in some lawsuit, not Kendrick himself, but his producer, whoever made that beat, stole some sample, didn't get clearance, and then this artist heard it and was like, "Fuck,
That's
man,"
me.
And that's a deeper issue because that sample was from a small indie artist that was not even no one really knew who they were, and taking that and like repurposing it where like you don't even give credit to this person.
Yeah.
Well, man, but like there's a difference between it's Stevie Wonder, like everybody knows Stevie Wonder and the way that they're flipping the Stevie Wonder samples is
Yeah.
amazing. So
There's also
you're
the
gonna sample something, just give credit. Just be like,
yeah.
hey, this is this.
At the very least, give credit,
Yeah,
and if you're going to like expect that it's going to make some money, they probably deserve. In the corporate economy, I wish it could be that everyone could just make art for art, but
yeah.
in a corporate world,
In
it would
some
probably be
ways
good
it
to
is,
share those
right? Yeah,
funds.
in a corporate way, but in some ways it is.
But
Like I could chop up I don't know, fucking Spider-Man theme song and
yeah,
make a fucking trap beat out of it and post it online. But, I might
yeah,
get
I
sued.
mean, like it's just the other thing that's also another factor to this is also assuming that all of this resampling is done in the name of true artistry or real quality, because like there's a lot, so many SoundCloud producers who is just like, I would
Of
be so
course,
much more
yeah, right.
pissed if they like
Yeah,
sampled
right.
something I made and it's like really good, and it's like, dude, you didn't put any effort
Yeah,
into that. You
right.
put like some, because like
Yeah,
but the majority of shit is what you hear, the really low quality stuff, which a great producer doesn't really have to do a lot to a sample if it's really good, but a shit producer will just put trap beats on it and a
right.
shitty drum over
yeah,
like a
yeah,
chord
yeah,
progression,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah,
dude,
you
like,
gotta be creative. You gotta be
and it's
creative
like,
with it. Yeah,
and even though that might sound hypocritical of me to like be like going down on
yeah.
this guy and like lamenting on that, like that's one of the things that, because I hate plagiarism, right? I'm all for no censorship, complete freedom of like do whatever the fuck you want
You know what? That
artistically.
reminds me of like this
Fuck plagiarism.
hilariously stupid example of that where Eminem, his one of his latest records, I think it was a really shitty one. What was it called? It was Revival.
Yeah,
The
it's
one with
something.
like him like going like this in the American
Yeah,
flag.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Dude.
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Horrible album cover, garbage album. There's a song like that album was so trash, man. Like it isn't even mixed good. Like when you're Eminem and you, I don't even pay attention to mixing a lot. I'm
Yeah,
listening to this. I'm like, I was having a laugh, and I wanted to return to this one song that I remember thinking was like one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. And I pressed play on it, and I remember like these speakers that are very nice, and I was like, this sounds like crap. Like you need to
yeah,
like mix
yeah,
it. Like what the fuck are you doing? You're Eminem. Like what are you doing?
yeah.
Um, but there's a track on that album that samples "Bad Reputation" by Joan Jett, Which,
Yeah.
first of all, who's this producer? What the fuck? That's Can you pick a cornier song? Jesus Christ! But he doesn't even do anything with it. He like black reputation, uh, uh, and then there's just the guitar chords. Burn
Oh
it,
man.
burn it, and then just like fucking boom bap drums on it. And you're like, bro, you did nothing. Like,
Yeah.
whenever I listen, this is what I know. Shit, whenever I have to listen to it, and go, I can fucking make that right
Yeah.
now, with no effort. And I don't even know how to use Logic very well. You know, so like I remember I sent you that there's a video that went viral that I suggest everybody check out, but it's how they flip the sample for
Yeah,
one
yeah, that
single
was
track.
really cool.
Really cool video. Um, there was people in the comments that were like, I could do that. It's just so simple. And then the first comment replied that ratioed it got way more likes was like, but you didn't. You
Yeah.
know? So like that's the whole concept behind it.
Yeah,
But
that's
like
great.
bad reputation is just such it's not creative. It's just like the chords.
Yeah, man, that's like gets into like a really frustrating argument, like those two things, because like I know what you mean, and then the criticism of like I could make that is really valid because the song is
Sure.
bad. But then like on something like Daft Punk, it's like, yeah, you could have made like simplicity does not mean that it's bad quality.
No.
Like that's
No.
ridiculous. But it's like you
No.
also it's about, and it's not even necessarily if it's easy to make something, but when you listen to a song that you're talking about, imagine if I listen to it too, I agree with you. It's just like this is just like you're like just throwing shit on there to be a
Yeah.
product.
Well, and it also
It's
sounds
like
like shit. It sounds like shit. I don't
yeah,
care
and
how
it's
it was.
just
I don't know
bad.
how it was made. I don't care
Yeah.
anything. Like the whole concept of like, if you, I'm sorry, but I just gotta say this. If you listen to a song and you go and you like it, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a really good song, but it was kind of easy to make. Fuck you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
at all. If it sounds good, it sounds good. If it sounds like shit, it sounds like shit. I don't care how they made it. I
Yeah.
don't care what the fuck the sample is. I don't give a flying fuck. If it sounds good, it sounds good. I don't care where you got that sample. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a good song and it sounds good to my hearing aid and my fucking stubby little ears. It sounds good. I'm just tired of this like conversation of like I don't know. I see it all the time online that are like, oh that, you like it's not that hard to flip it. Like, but you did it, and it sounds fucking great. So I
You
don't
know,
really care.
yeah. This makes me
Because
think of
no one,
something.
you don't know how something was made. Like
Yeah.
you don't know.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
You're just assuming that was using a name. Like how do you know that?
You
Like
don't know. Yeah, sometimes
sure
the
that
simplest stuff
melody,
is
sure
so hard to
that
make.
melody is, 4 notes, but guess what? You didn't come up with that melody. Fucking do it right now. Like,
Yeah.
like you're at the weekend. You can't sing over like, like it's like this like mentality of like, ever since I started listening to music, I'm going on, music production, like videos and forums and stuff like that, and I just see these fucking basement dwellers that are just like. And they're just like, bro, what are you fucking saying, man? Like, you just
Yeah.
sound so crazy.
I feel
Anyway.
I feel it reminds me of like sort of my disgust with these same people that you're talking about has made me think about something that I've been feeling a lot right now, which I've been starting as I've been drawing this comic and working on original music recently.
Mhm.
What one of the things I have been realizing is just how disgusted I am by just like the tips videos, like quick tips of how to
Sure.
do
Yeah.
things, or like the
Right.
quality of music, or listening to music that's like actually
Or
good and
how
trying to
to,
like
I honestly like how to do like a certain thing in Logic, obviously, but the ones that are like how to make good melodies or
yeah,
something. It's like,
yeah.
okay,
It's
like,
like for me, it's like any of these tutorial type shits, or even like fucking reviews, Like
yeah,
I like
sure,
Anthony Fantano because it's so
right,
personal, but like a
right,
lot of times you hear like all this shit about people where they're talking like they're rating it on some kind of numerical scale
Yeah.
and shit. And like, and then along those
Yeah.
lines, it's just like, dude, I'm 100% certain that all these opinions that you think are incredibly objective about what you're talking about right now, someone else will have the exact opposite opinion who is probably more credible than you are.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
you hear
yeah.
all these things where it's just like, you get taught mixing, right? Here's the irony. You get taught mixing in school, like if you're going to like mixing school to learn how to be like a record engineer or something like that.
Right.
And you learn all the correct things about that. And then you listen to Neutral Milk Hotel and you're like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Right? Because Neutral Milk Hotel is not mixed fucking well, you idiots.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, you know, it depends on the type of music that you want to make, and it depends on, like, you know, you'll listen to like pop. Some pop is very a good example. Like there, like Sia, who like is I don't really like Sia, but when
Yeah.
I was listening to her newest song, and I was listening to it, I was like, I hated it. I was like, this is garbage. But when you hear about it, it's impeccably produced.
Yeah.
And to the point that is disgusting. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it is so well mixed. It's so, like, it sounds like a robot made it. And I hate shit like that. You know,
Yeah.
there's even like my favorite pop shit sounds like a human made it, you know? Like, it sounds like, you know, you listen to Taylor Swift, her newest record, her newest couple albums, you're like, really well mixed, really well produced, but you feel a human playing that guitar. You
Yeah.
feel, you know, the timbre of her voice that she's actually, you know, performing.
Singing.
You
Yeah.
know, instead of it's so cleanly produced, and that's such a good point. Like Lucia Loco is obviously great.
Yeah.
You know, Wild Brains obviously great. But these are records that are that sound like, you know, they're not, you know, you can tell what's going on, but they're not mixed like a fucking, you know, I don't know, a traditional, you know, rock out like a
And it's
like a,
not, and
the
it's not
best
like
rock
when you're,
album that you'll hear on the radio today. You know,
and not like you're listening to that and being like, oh, if only this was mixed well. You're like, no, dude, I don't want this mixed well. This is perfect
right?
how it is.
Sometimes you are right. Sometimes you are. Like when I listen to that Eminem record, you're like, this sounds like fucking dog shit.
Right.
I wish this was
Right.
mixed. You know, it doesn't. That's the whole debate about Igor that made me laugh so hard because it was like people would be like, "Oh, this isn't mixed well." Like, no, you just go. It's
You don't
mixed
know what you're
well.
talking
This
about.
is a stylistic choice that is being made to sound like this, and you can be like, "I don't like the sound of it." Cool, but it is
Yeah.
not mixed poorly. You know,
It's so hard also too, because like if you could create music like you do scientific tests, it'd be really interesting to take like a thing like, okay, so there's so many variables, because with music you could do a take that is better than any other take, and sometimes that take, no matter how poorly it was recorded, Louis Armstrong, you know, you listen to those records all the time, people still listen to Louis Armstrong's fucking trumpeting away, and it's like those sound like shit, you know, but it's like that's the take of Louis Armstrong we have, you know. You could have another trumpet player play that lick on a better recording. Is that objectively better? No, because it's not Louis Armstrong doing that take of that music. So if we could do it where we could make it where Louis Armstrong could play, or Neutral Milk Hotel could play the same song, it might be that, yeah, it would be objectively better. We get like the right hormones, all these levels we're out where it's like it's maximized when it's recorded well, but it's like we don't get the same take every time. You know, we can't do that with art. It's too variable.
This is also the art because how the album sounds. You want the album sound. You know, Neutral Milk Hotel, that record would not maybe have the same emotional, you know, impact and depth that if it was like produced really well. You know, it sounds like a dude in his basement fucking like emptying his feelings on the microphone.
And it's also what makes it what makes it so relatable. But you know, there's also like another
but that's the thing is what was so great about Igor is that was recorded. That's what the Igor sound. I would argue. Igor 100% sounds like that. That was recorded in, you know, top studios in the world. You know,
definitely.
It's a choice. You know,
and it's also
yeah.
It's also fucked up too, to make this more complicated, because like sometimes like maybe you are just like someone who mixes, right? and you're just driven by that, and your favorite music might be like that shit, whatever you said, like the Sia song or something like that,
Right.
or things like that, just because of how artistically. I hear that a lot. One of my first music teachers was a recording engineer, and he really opened my eyes to appreciating pop music for how well it's mixed, because of the
Yes.
artistry
Yeah.
of the
Right.
mastery and the mixing
Right.
behind that.
Yes.
Because that's where you have to look if you want to learn those things,
Right.
because that's where
Right.
the masters are working.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
there's also that
This
whole
is
other
the
side
fucking
to it.
Weekend's latest album is
Yeah, right.
insanely produced. Yeah.
So it's like it's just so fucking subjective, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Right.
so everything is subjective. The
Totally.
older as I live in this world year by
I
year,
know. Yeah.
I'm just like everything is relative.
Yeah.
Everything. It's
Yep.
all subjective. Even
Yeah.
science. So science
True.
is so fucking subjective. I don't care. Shoot me. I'll say it.
I think we should move on.
Yeah. You want to talk about the movie?
Yeah. Let's talk about a
Wow.
movie. So I recommended a movie called Bronson that is directed by one of the film what how to say kind of he's a film nerd's hero. You know,
Yeah, that's a great way to say
in
it.
our generation, this is a dude that gets a lot of love, gets a lot of hate, a lot of controversy, a lot of talk. Nicolas Winding Refn, and a couple of his films
Oh
really
boy.
like inspired the fuck out of me. Drive, Valhalla Rising,
Bo.
his films are incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
And Bronson was a movie he made in 2008. This is before Drive, so this is 2 years before Drive. And it stars Tom Hardy. And this is a film that I saw in high school, and like absolutely like loving this film. And then hadn't seen it in like a long time, and I remember like just seeing it. I don't know, on my YouTube feed or something like that. Like, oh shit, I
Yeah.
gotta watch that movie again. So yeah, I recommended it, and this movie stars Tom Hardy, and what this film is about is this is like this thing. This is a story that if you just told it to me and didn't tell me whoever was directing, who was in it, was like, I gotta watch that because this story is just so insane.
Yeah.
And so what this is a true story about this man, Michael Peterson, who's a British man, who who goes to jail for 7 years, and basically keeps himself in prison because he likes it. He likes fighting. He's a very
Yep.
violent. This is a true story. This is a real guy that exists. He's still. I don't know if he's still in prison. I don't
He's
know.
still alive. He's still in prison.
Still alive. Still in prison.
Yep.
Wow. So he's been in prison for probably 40 years now. Solitary confinement. Um, and that story is insane. It's ridiculous. And there's nothing like a movie about a crazy person. I love
Hell
it.
yeah.
I'll watch anything about a crazy person. And I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite ones. Um,
Hell yeah.
I I love this movie. I think this movie is amazing, and I'm really curious to see what you think of it. And it's also interesting to talk about with Refn, because this is very different than some of the movies that he's been making
Yeah.
recently. Um, and it's interesting. So I want to know what you think of it, because I
Well,
love this movie.
let me tell you about Bronson, man. Hold on, I gotta swallow this cabbage I just took a bite of. It was a really big bite. I wasn't prepared for that amount of chewing I had to take.
This man is eating a cabbage. It's a whole
Bitch.
cabbage.
Wow. That's a lot. Did you know there's a lot of cabbage in just one bite of cabbage? There's a lot of layers to it. Oh my god. Oh. Okay. Let me set this aside for now. That's enough cabbage.
Uh-huh.
So this is my first time I've seen Bronson
Uh-huh.
ever in my life. First time. Um, and I actually watched it earlier this morning because I forgot to
Oh,
watch it
cool.
last
Oh,
night. So it's really fresh in my mind.
cool.
And I was really interested because I love Refn, and it makes a lot of sense. This was his earlier films now, but I was really interested to see how he was going to do a true story, because that just
Yeah,
seems like he
right.
just does not seem like the biopic kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really his style.
Yeah.
But Bronson, as I was watching it, was like, oh my god, I can't think of a more perfect character for Refn to do a
I know,
movie
right?
about.
Right.
because
Yeah.
because the whole point of like Bronson as a person is like this, he's centered around violence, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
Refn's whole theme,
Yeah. Right.
which made it so appropriate to have this real character. And also the fact that Bronson is not a mentally stable person just suited it,
Not even a
suited
little bit.
not even a little bit. And
Yeah.
it just suited it so well for Refn to just sort of take this Refn approach to telling the story, and
Yeah.
it still felt genuine to
And
Bronson
that's
as a
something.
human.
Yeah. And that's something that I really want to commend this movie. And there's because we talk about biopics, sometimes, and
They
it's
mostly
not.
suck.
It's not something that I gravitate towards, and mostly because, and I'm not obviously opposed to biopics. Of course not. We're part of movie that's true, whatever. If this movie wasn't true, it'd still be fucking great,
Yeah.
But whatever. However you get your story, I don't really care. But the problem with biopics sometimes is they feel like they have to hit the points, right? And what makes this great is, I didn't know who Charles Bronson was. I didn't know who this guy was.
Yeah.
In really some way, it's not a biopic. It's just a movie about this kind of crazy story in London that
Yeah.
was. It's not like he's this iconic figure that everybody knows about.
Yeah,
Um,
but and it's also such a it's just such a Bronson's such a great character to do a movie about, because
yes,
he is such an exaggerated personality.
yes,
He's perfect
yes.
as a screen character.
And what I also wanted to mention too is that in terms of biopics, this is extremely creative. How
Yeah.
Refn
Yeah.
makes this movie is makes it a film. And like that's something that is missing a lot in biopics. Like there's examples that I can point to that
100%.
are also really creative, like Rocket Man, for example. I found to be incredibly creative as a
Yeah.
biopic. And sometimes it's hard to be creative when you're trying to tell a true story about somebody or tell their story.
Especially if they're fascinating and people already know the story essentially.
Yeah, and how Refn, I think, structured this movie and how he took creative liberties with this character and what this is fucking it's so great. It's really refreshing and cool and so Refn.
Yeah.
And another thing that's like kind of interesting about this too is that Refn, a lot of critics and people who see these films will put sometimes they'll be like his films are too slow, they're too self indulgent in a way sometimes.
Yes.
This
Yes.
movie is interesting to watch because it is 90 minutes, it flies, it is like
Yeah.
almost it's his fastest paced movie I've
I,
ever seen.
I think it's his least self-indulgent film
Yeah.
next to Drive. Like
Yes, I
and
agree,
it might
yeah.
even be less self-indulgent and lean compared to Drive, I
Yeah,
would
I
say.
agree, yeah. It's lean.
That's a great
That's
point.
a great word to use. We haven't even talked about Tom Hardy is I mean he
Wow.
is
He's
this is my
everything.
favorite performance of Tom
Yeah.
Hardy ever. Like ever. He hasn't given great performances, obviously. Nothing's topped this,
Yeah.
in my opinion. He is exceptional in this. I mean, he is so engaging to the point that there's scenes that I see in this and I'm just stunned at
Yeah.
how amazing he is in this movie. And a lot of those scenes that I'm thinking of are the the stage scenes, the theatrical
Yeah, like when he plays the nurse and
Yes.
Bronson talking
Yeah.
to himself, and he does
Incredible.
that like flipping, and there's
Yeah.
also the sound design, of
Yeah.
course. Refn has
Incredible.
great sound in his film.
Incredible.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% am with you on
And the
that.
way the humor that he injects in this, Tom Hardy is ridiculously funny in this movie.
Yeah,
And it's just a like a insane character, and what this film kind of does that I was kind of getting to is how this movie is structured. Is that Michael Peterson, Hardy's character, narrates the movie. It's told. This whole thing is told from his perspective.
no, not in the typical narration
No,
sense, but
no,
it's
he's
still
giving it.
narrated.
He's narrating it as he's giving a one-man show
Yeah,
to
yeah,
an audience,
which may
which
or
is
may not be
fascinating.
real.
Probably not real.
Definitely not real.
But it's interesting because even with that aspect to it, it adds so much to who this who this guy was and why was he doing what he was doing. And I think
Yeah,
having him put on this one man show was such an amazing decision because to me, a lot of what makes Michael Peterson so interesting and Charles Bronson interesting is that there's a lot of times in this movie that he wanted to be the most famous. He wanted to be kind of known. He
yeah,
wanted to be like he felt pride in that he was the most famous prisoner um, in Britain, and there's something so genius about him putting on this performative act to an audience because
yeah. Well,
ref-
it's so in line with the Charles Bronson character, because it's all about egotism and
his
bravado.
alter ego, Charles
So,
Bronson.
and yeah, yeah,
Right.
and it's that whole thing where it's not like a serial killer. He's not like a
No,
serial
no,
killer who's
no.
just like, leave me alone, let me kill people. He's like, I
Right,
want you to look at me and experience me,
right,
which is
yeah,
which is why, and I agree with you, it's just why that solo performance works so well
yeah.
for with that character.
And it's like a brilliant. I guess that's how Refn saw him. And that's what I love about this movie too is that it is Refn sees this guy in a way. He sees Michael Peterson and Charles Bronson as kind of a beautiful, like something about him that is very beautiful, right?
Yeah,
There's something about like him that is very human and interesting, and I think like the way that he took this was um was really great and super
yeah.
theatrical.
I think that, yeah, I think that's really true. He did do a good job of making him human, and at the same time, this is really just part of the fact of making him human. He also did a really good job of showing that he was an incredibly violent and a dangerous person who should be in
Yes,
prison.
yes,
And it's not like he's making like a documentary about like release Bronson. It's like, no, this
right,
this guy seems mentally unstable, and I'm glad he's in prison.
yeah,
But he also shows like this human side of his compassion to it, and
yes,
also just like a great depiction of like it's not like he's like left field insane, where he's like easily dismissible
yeah.
insane.
That's one of the most interesting things,
He's like
right?
relatably insane almost.
That's one of the more interesting things about Charles Bronson is that I haven't done a lot of research about the real life story. I'm just kind of coming out with this movie.
Yeah, it's
Um,
very similar to the movie. I read his Wikipedia
okay,
page.
okay. And but how one of my favorite things in this movie is, I guess like the film is kind of like told through he's moving prison to prison and
Yeah,
how there's scenes of him getting out. When he first gets out and goes back into the real world, those are some of my favorite scenes of the movie because you see it's regular life is not for this guy.
yeah, I love that.
And
I love
but
that.
he's not insane.
Yeah,
It's just not who he was as a person because he didn't belong in that insane asylum, which is another amazing sequence when he's
yeah.
in the insane
That
asylum.
was the most
Doesn't
disturbing
belong.
sequence of
Yes,
the film
yeah,
for me.
doesn't
Yeah.
belong there. Clearly, and um, but it's interesting because he just was a guy who he says in the beginning of this movie, he grew up with two loving families. He was married, and just couldn't. He was just like we didn't want to go back to that at all. And there's
Yeah.
something so like that's so foreign to almost all of us. One of my favorite lines in this whole movie. There's so many great lines, but there's an amazing line in the beginning when he's pacing back and forth in the cell, and he goes, some people see prison as a hell, a living hell, and he's like, I see it as a hotel room. Where he
Yeah, I love
sees it
that
as
motif.
a like a
Love that.
cozy place, and there's something so eerie and fun, darkly funny, and but the tone of this is so perfect. Like
Yeah.
the movie takes this like very like theatrical performative aspect like throughout the whole movie,
What
and it's so great.
one of the biggest things I came out after watching this movie was this. It's so strange. This is kind of talking about this human aspect again, because it's so strange to watch this movie about this person who's obviously insane, but like what I came out of it was this feeling of sort of lightness and appreciation for seeing that you could live life any way that you wanted to. Because this man spent his life 30 years in solitary and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
like not like saying he is a good life or people in prison or solitary should like buck up, have a good time. Like obviously not
No,
saying that.
no, no,
There's
no,
like it's fucking horrible, but for
yeah,
whatever reason, Bronson was just really well suited, and seems it's like, man, I don't know what you would say if I told this to you, but it's like I am inspired by your life, and you spent
yeah,
30 years of
right.
it in solitary. I don't know if I appreciate you as a
I
person, but
know,
I'm
right?
inspired by this movie.
It's really interesting, and it's something about like I think it's the level of it's like the idea of taking what you have and like just kind of like living with it,
Yeah.
and like dealing with it. But there's a way that like, and you always admire somebody that's like go against the grain of like what everybody else is doing. It's like I just want to live in prison. I like
Yeah.
prison.
Yeah.
Fuck everything else.
Yeah. One of the things
There's a beauty in that.
I think what I love about it is there's this kind of character that comes. I can't think of any other great examples right now, but they definitely exist. But this is a movie where it's like this guy has gone against like being like the normal conventional grain of just doing what you're supposed to, and
Yeah,
following that and just like building yourself like corporate job, do what you're supposed to, and just being like fuck it, I'm not going to do anything and just let the world and myself exist and form itself. And
yeah,
it's not like he's just like a blank person. He grows,
yes, yeah,
you still, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that
right.
that's one of the craziest thing I think is awesome. I love that in stories where you have this character who doesn't try to impose anything on himself and just like stumbles onto a passion of his, and it's
Yeah,
just and
right.
it's just like the world just forms him. You're like a
Yeah,
stone with water. It's just like what
yeah,
it feels like. It's like it just smooth the edges
yeah,
eventually.
yeah,
It's inspiring.
yeah.
It's genuinely inspiring.
Yeah, and it's also like there's a lot of Tom Hardy in this movie is like so amazing. And, like I think the best examples I can like think of are those theatrical scenes where he's giving these like incredible monologues. Um, but also in the various scenes where he one of my favorite things about this character is that, like we said, he loves fighting. He just
Yeah.
loves it. And he will just like be like, alright, I'm just gonna fight this dude. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
for just like out of nowhere. And like
Yeah.
those scenes man, when he's like pumping himself up and like preparing to like do it is it's comical. It's fucking hilarious, but it's darkly funny, and it's like because it's so insane. Like it's I heard like on the poster, this is described as like a Clockwork Orange from the 21st century.
Yeah.
In a weird way, I do see that. It's like the rebellion aspect of like enjoying rebellion and relishing in these people who
Yeah.
enjoy rebellion. So I understand that, but like like one of my favorite fucking scenes, man. Towards the end, and when he's in jail, this is when like he's in a different prison, and this is before he like he has to go to those art classes.
Yeah.
When he's in there and and the other guard comes and he locks the other guard.
Oh
And
yeah, when he takes the librarian prisoner. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
he takes his clothes off and he forces the guy to like rub, oil on him. And dude, when the warden calls him and he's sitting on the phone, he's like, "What do you want?" And then he's like, "No, well, no." Like Bronson goes, "I want." He's like, "I want you to give me what I want." And then the guy's like, "What do you want?" And he's like, "What do you got?" And it's just like it's so like the way that Bronson plays mind games and just fucks with people is
Yeah.
so funny because
Yeah.
you know as an audience member like he's just fucking with these people so he can stay in prison, and it's
Yeah.
like it's such a bizarre uh character trait in real life that you can't help but be like entertained by it. You can't help
Yeah.
but laugh at it and be like, this guy's inspiring.
Yeah.
This doesn't give a fuck, you know?
Well, he's just like he has no option to be this violent, authentic self,
Right. Yeah,
And it's
right.
like I think that's what's so satisfying. And also, we should say that we're obviously talking about Tom Hardy's portrayal of Bronson, not
Right.
Bronson the
Yeah.
person. We
Yeah.
don't fucking know
Yeah.
Bronson the person,
Apparently,
but
I learned doing research that Tom Hardy and him became friends. They're friends.
wow, wow,
Like, Tom Hardy would go visit him in prison and to, like, study the role. And I know Bronson also saw this movie and called it like creative and brilliant. Like the
yeah,
actual Clark Bronson like thinks this movie is like amazing because it really gets his
it
essence.
is,
I feel like
yeah.
it's
Well,
not
it's
portraying
also
him
just,
in any bad way.
and it's it's also just like a really good movie too. I think
Hmm.
on top of that, where it's like I think that's the thing where that's what we always are talking about with biopics, that you have to take accept the responsibility of taking control when you're telling a biopic, where
Yeah,
it's like I'm never, because I think it's ridiculous that a director could think that they could tell someone else's story while not being that person. This is like,
I
no,
just
dude,
yeah. And
you
I
have
think
to
the issue with
realize.
like trying to please everybody when
Yeah,
you make something,
yeah,
like Bohemian Rhapsody is a great example. That movie's
yeah,
a watered down version of what Freddie Mercury's life was.
yeah,
This man was smoking cocaine off of lizards' assholes for fun, and
yeah,
you didn't include that in the movie. Come on,
yeah. Come on, man.
you're not telling it truthfully.
Yeah. And it's not, yeah, 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 yeah. So I think,
This man was a fuck machine, and you
so
didn't
it,
show him having sex once. Okay.
yeah. And it's like, and I
How do
think
you think he
one of
got AIDS? Anyway.
the, I feel like Bronson just really does a good job of maintaining that, like, a genuineness both to Bronson and also to Refn, just saying this is
Yeah.
how I want to portray this story. This is kind of
Right.
like the things that I want to tell. They're like, this is what interests me about this person, and I want to tell it the best way that
Exactly.
I possibly
Right.
can.
Right. Right. Yeah. Not. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah. I mean, this is like also this movie looks amazing. It's
Yeah.
shot on film, and like the colors are amazing. The Refn just did such a great job. It has that classic that he's kind of known for now. Where I don't know, I can't really. You feel his style, the way he edits films, the way he moves the camera.
Yeah.
Very feels very
Yeah, and this is another thing about this film that I really appreciate, and it's really cool that this is one of his earlier works, and he developed into other films like Drive and Neon Demon, because I was thinking about, it's just like, man, this character. I'm thinking of shooting it more like a film. Oh man, I can't think of the film right now. Anyway, I'm thinking that this film needed a degree of rawness, right?
yes,
Which I
yeah,
usually think
yeah.
of Refn as being like this
Very
seamless
pristine. Yeah,
electronic,
yes,
like,
yeah. The
technical thing.
score is amazing in this too. It
Yeah,
also has the music choices just fit the tuners. New Order,
I
Pet
love
Shop
the score.
Boys,
I
you know,
love the score
80s
so
synth
much.
pop.
But like this, and even though it has all of these referencing qualities to it, like the music and stuff,
Yeah,
it still
right.
has that rawness, and
Yes,
like he
yeah,
uses like the color light, which I'm not sure how if he returned to this now, like it's so not like his thing now.
no, no,
But like if
yeah,
he did, maybe it would look different. But I loved how sparingly he used some of like his like red lighting or things like
right,
that. Like he
right.
had like the opening scene of this film is very Refn, which I love. That's probably my favorite
Oh
scene
my
of the
gosh,
movie,
yeah,
how
oh
this
yeah,
movie
right,
opens,
right,
but which is
yeah,
very Refn. But there's so many scenes like when he's out of prison and stuff, which is just like just so raw, just well writ
right,
raw performances with these
right.
quirky Refn universe type
I
characters.
love the side. The side characters are fucking great.
I like
The
them
dude
too.
who hires him in the Fight Club, fucking
Let's
character,
fuck.
is such great, man. Great character.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Is there's great characters around him. You know, his one of the more heartbreaking scenes, his his girlfriend that he gets after. She's great in the movie,
Yeah.
and but I love you. She's like, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I have a boyfriend. I'm getting married to Brian now. when he
That
gets,
was
when he steals the ring,
yeah.
and he's just like, he just slams the dude's head into the table, and he's like, don't you fucking move.
Yeah.
Don't you fucking move. And just like, takes the ring.
I love that whole factor with like the girlfriend and stuff. And I don't know how accurate this is to Bronson as a person, but as the character in the movie, it was really nice that he wasn't abusive towards women or things like
Well,
that.
that's a thing about this character that is so fascinating because they're as somebody who like is this violent, is this loves fighting, you would assume that this dude is um there's a point in the movie that he was, you know, uh a, a okay kid. You know, he
Yeah.
just fucking liked to punch people in the face.
Yeah.
You know, he just liked this like aggression about him that he couldn't shake off. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good to acknowledge that he actually obviously like liked his family, liked the ladies that he was with, you know, but he just liked to punch other men in the face.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but there's something so you know, like very masculine and primal feeling that
Yeah.
a lot of men have, right? And I think he was just his whatever that is in our brain, the primal aspect of men, you know, wanting to punch each other, uh, was just elevated. It was just
Yeah.
to like a degree that not a lot of people have, not a lot of other men would like to just walk out and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna punch this guy in the face.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully we'll get in a fight.
You know, and it's also, man, that's a really interesting point because it's like Bronson is sort of like the example of like he's like the epitome of what like toxic masculinity would look like.
Sure.
And but like he also shows the side of like the cost of what it is to live at so
Yeah,
toxically
right.
masculine
Right.
like he
Yeah,
lives.
right.
And that's also so visible on his character because he's so insecure and
Yeah,
emotional too
right.
on top
Yeah,
of that.
right. Yeah,
So
right.
he's like this he's impulsively masculine to a degree that it's his greatest strength and his greatest fault,
Yeah,
which is
right.
what makes
Yeah,
him such a
exactly.
great character.
Right, yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, I love this movie. And I also think that I love that it's only like 90
I
minutes.
like
Like
that
I
too.
love that it's like kind of this like
In and
like
out.
wrestling really, I mean, no fat at all.
No,
I mean
yeah.
like it is super lean and it's fucking great for it. You know, I would hope that, you know, I don't know, man, some of the stuff now, especially that fucking Amazon show, especially that Amazon show.
Wow, yeah, that show
So much fat.
sucks.
So much fat. And you
Sucks.
could have trimmed, I've seen like maybe 4 or 5 episodes of it. There are some brilliant, there are some
Yeah.
insanely brilliant moments in that honestly blew my fucking mind. But a lot of it is fat. A lot of it you could just cut out. A lot of it is just indulgent. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's cool to watch this because not at all. It
Yeah.
is just
No,
literally just to the point.
I get the idea after getting into music like Sun O, which is all about like these slow 20-minute songs and you just
Oh, yeah,
listen to
I got
things like
opposed
that.
to it when it works. Of course,
Yeah,
when it
that's
doesn't
the
work.
thing. That's the thing, right? It's just like I'm
Drive is
all
very slow. Somebody would call Drive a very slow movie. Not me, but
yeah.
because it works for me. But
Yeah.
like I can totally, it is a slow paced film.
Yeah.
This is not. This is very fast
Yeah,
paced,
yeah, yeah. I
deliberately
think
fast paced.
I want to talk about like just mention how much I appreciated the structure of this film because this film sort of walks it does okay. So like one of the great things that it does that movies just seem to not want to do very much is that it's mostly a visual story because Bronson is not the most eloquent man at describing
Yeah,
things all the time.
yeah.
Like you have those theatrical scenes which are still like not very much like informative. They're just like him saying whatever he's feeling like,
That's so much to it, though.
but like
So
the
much to
film
it.
is mostly visual where you just see
Yeah,
Bronson being Bronson and
right,
living his life, which is
right.
so perfect for making a movie. That's how
Yeah,
what you
right.
want to do.
Yeah,
But the other thing that's like interesting, really cool about this movie is how sketchily it's sort of stitched together and like
yeah,
and it's linear in chronology and time. It's not jumping around in time, but it's also completely not linear. It's very much
yes,
like
yeah,
it's very much like just watching moments in a scene where it's like
right,
vignettes stitched together to make a
yeah,
linear like story of this movie,
right.
which a lot you see this format sometimes before, but like it's a format that could easily become pretentious in my opinion in a lot of
Yes,
examples,
well,
but
I think you
it's
also
done
know, you
so
don't even
well.
know what I love about this is, yeah, it's moments, but you don't, like, the time is, you don't even know. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's, like, maybe the first 7 years, or I don't even know. You're so right. You don't really know like the timetable of like how long he's in each prison or how long he's in. It's like different moments in these different prisons and these different like experiences in his life. The only like kind of linear part of it is when he's out of prison.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You can
yeah.
get like you say it's 59 days.
Yeah.
The thing that is it's like a couple months, a few months that he was out of prison.
Yeah, and I think what this does that I think is this is the problem with all other biopics that just
Oh, I just
totally
love
removes
him.
you from it. But like with the problem
Yeah.
with having like like a structure in the traditional sense, like with the I won't use Bohemian Rhapsody because I haven't seen it. But like what I experience with a lot of biopics is that they try to craft this Hollywood
Yeah,
story and
right.
make the person a
Here's the beginning
character.
of it. Here's
Yes,
the middle, and here's the grand finale
which is
where
like
he
that's
where
ridiculous.
he
This is not
plays.
what life is
Yeah,
life. Life is a
yeah,
story, but life is
right.
not like this. And what
Yeah,
this does is it just sort of cracks the form open and gives you direct access to
yeah,
Bronson the
right,
character,
right,
which is
right.
so good. It's
And
so
like,
good.
yeah, I mean, I think like it works a lot for this story, but I like it depends what story you're telling, right? Because when you're telling like a story about John, for example, like it might be like yeah, like it might be cool to see him as a kid and see him as like a teenager and an adult.
Yeah.
But to me, the way that they did that was a lot more creative. Like you could tell that story in that structure in that way. Just do it in a little more creative way instead of like subtitles come up and say age 5 or
Yeah.
1984. It's like okay, like here we go.
Just
You
put
know,
some personality
and
into it,
what like
man. Make
just
it
a
human.
little example of Rocket Man, like the transition where he becomes an adult, like a kid to an adult, is like he goes to a bar as a teenager,
Yeah.
and like he, if I remember correctly, he like gets asked to like sing, and he like sits at the piano and he starts playing, and it it like it's all one take, and it like transforms into a huge musical number of him as a as an adult. So
Yeah.
like kind of just this big number that this was like clearly illustrating that this is the moment that gave him confidence to become the man who he is today. And
Yes.
you didn't have to see him play the piano, like the kid play the piano, and everybody's like, "Wow, dude, you're so good at singing." No, it
Yeah.
was done
Yeah.
in a big musical number. It was told through I don't know cinema.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Believe it or not.
that's a creative example, but like I
Yeah. Yeah.
totally understand what you're saying. But yeah, Bronson is like, yeah, it's you're so right. It is. You're really. I love it was told from the perspective of Bronson. There's
Yeah.
no other character that, and what I love about the nonlinear aspect too is like when you're in jail, I would assume that the days kind of just bleed into one another, so it
Yeah.
kind of actually adds a lot to it because like time is just kind of like going, when you're
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not, it's which is cool. And I think like the pace of it really adds
Uh,
to it.
the last thing I think is really great about the perspective too, not like we've talked about everything, but the last thing I can think about is how like so with the example of biopics that I don't think well of. They do it where you're like the omnipotent and you're watching this story
Yeah,
happen,
right,
or
right,
they do
right,
it
right,
from a
right, right,
first person
right,
perspective
right,
where like they're telling it through narration.
right.
Bronson has like somewhere in between, it's not
Yeah,
third person, it's not first person. It's like Bronson is telling you personally. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
right.
not like you're a third person like watching from bird's eye. It's like you're in the corner just kind of like please don't hit me.
Yeah,
Which is
right.
like so it's like
Yeah,
intimate, but you're not Bronson. So you
yeah,
don't have to be in that psychology, but you intimately experience that
yes,
psychology
yeah,
still.
yeah,
Which is
yeah,
like that's like a testament to Nicolas Winding Refn's
yeah,
work because he had to maintain that
yes.
throughout. That's not easy to do.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, I mean, like Tom Hardy and Russell were working at such like a high level, both like this,
Yeah.
this creating this truly unique experience. I mean, there's not
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of movies like this. I mean,
Absolutely.
and I think a lot of that has to do with Tom Hardy's insane performance, but there's not a lot of people like this guy, so you
Yeah.
haven't really seen a lot of movies
I
like
don't know.
this.
I don't know if I said it because, but I think I should. Is just also doubling down on how great Tom Hardy's performance is. He's
There's a
so
lot of.
good.
I was thinking. I was like, there's a lot of performances that I can think of that weren't even acknowledged by the Academy or weren't even. I mean, it's kind of mind blowing to me that he didn't even get like not nominated or acknowledged in any capacity at all. Because I mean, this is one of the best performances I've ever seen.
And this is I don't know if this happens to you, but this happens to me all the time where I hear like great directors like Nicolas Winding Refn, or I mean, you hear this all the time, but you like there's always like works or something where people will say it's just like, yeah, this one's kind of cool, but it's not that good. And it's like that's what I kind of had this perception of Bronson, where it's just like it's kind of neat, but they kind of so I had this perception that like Tom
Yeah,
Hardy
sure.
kind of got this down and kind of
Right,
created a
right.
cool story.
Like
And I've
before
always
you
like
saw it.
yeah, and I've
Yeah,
always
right.
yes, and I've always
Yeah.
had this perception where it's just like I'll probably want to watch that, but it's like it's not worth like my direct attention. And it
Right.
like pisses me off that it's just like I was so fooled. I was so
Yeah, I
fooled and
mean,
I
I think
missed out
like
on this
that,
great
I
movie.
think that's like a good lesson where I learned that I totally know what you mean.
I have to
Uh,
relearn this every
and I
single
think
year, it
like and I
feels
think
like.
like you don't know until you watch
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. You don't fucking know.
This isn't one of his most. It was well reviewed. Got really good reviews when it came out,
Yeah.
but sometimes like things will just get buried, and like reference made. I would say a better movie. I think Drive is a better movie. So I
Yeah.
think in this case, I think Bronx's just buried, and I think like when you look at Refn, I think people kind of lean towards the recent stuff, the drives, the neon demons, and kind
Yeah.
of just forget about this gem that he
Yeah.
made, like 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I hope people listening to this podcast check this movie out because
Yeah.
it's fucking awesome. And if you love Tom Hardy, if you call yourself a Tom Hardy fan, watch this fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
will be like, what the hell have I been doing? You know?
And if you're like me, I mean, there's also the factor of it being like a true story. I also have
Dude,
resistance to some things like that because I'm
absolutely.
so much
Bro,
more
I
drawn to
totally.
fiction.
With Mark Scorsese, there's one, Last Temptation of Christ. I didn't see
Yeah,
that movie for a
right.
long time because I was like, do I really want to watch a movie about Jesus?
Yeah,
It's one of my favorite Mark Scorsese movies of all time. It literally punched me. Like, I was like, this is amazing, you know? So I totally understand.
yeah.
Totally. There's so many times where I'm like, heard of like, it's like, oh, from one guy, I don't even know, like, from one dude that's like, this one's alright. You know, it's like, and I just take
It's
his,
amazing. It's
you know,
amazing how manipulatable a human is with their emotions. Like if a person's unsure, you can make them do whatever the fuck you want. You know,
I know,
it's
right?
crazy.
Ah! Oh my god, it's so true.
Yeah.
We should end it on that one. All right, everybody. This one's
What?
kind of shorter, but
Yeah. We should say this is approved. Are you
it's
ready
definitely,
to say?
yeah.
Are you ready to
Yeah,
say
I
it?
already said it. Yeah.
Say it with me, you son of a gun.
This is,
Ready?
yeah.
Egg and
Butter
butter
approved.
approved.
Bum, bum, bum.
It's so
Bum, bum,
good,
bum.
man.
Super
It's
good
so
movie.
good.
One of my favorite wrestling movies. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Let me pick what
Not
we're
to the
talking
end.
about. What?
Oh my god. Say
Let
what
me
you said again.
let me tell you what we're
Oh
watching
yeah.
next week.
Right.
I'm not really so confident about this film. This was like the film that I was sort of like,
Confident
okay,
in terms of.
I'm not sure how this is like. I don't know anything about this film.
Okay.
I don't
Cool.
know what the conversation will be like. I think this film's going to be wacky,
Perfect.
like tobacco.
Uh-huh.
And it was sort of something I was just like, well, I really want to see this, and if I can't think of anything better, then we'll watch this. But I am pretty excited about that. So this is another animated film,
Yeah.
and this is a weird animated film. It's a film from 2018, and it's called The Wolf House, and that's
Okay.
literally all I know about it.
Okay.
I think we
Wolf
can rent it
House.
on Amazon, but it's called The Wolf House. I
So,
just saw some clips from it, and it looks insane. So, and
oh,
it
let
looks,
me also before we go, no, probably not going to listen to this, but let me just shout out. There's a movie that just came out called Nomadland,
yeah,
starring Francis McDormand, that I saw in theaters. It is an incredible movie. It is an amazing movie. It is on Hulu. If you guys want to check that out, but it's also in
did
theaters
it?
too.
Wait, did you say it came out this
It
year?
just came out, literally
Okay,
like within the week, I think. It
okay,
is a amazing movie. Highly, highly recommend. Um, my favorite movie in 2021 so far. I don't see like
sick.
two movies, but I also want to see Judas and the Black Messiah. I heard that's fucking amazing too. So yeah, there's some movies coming out, man. There's some movies
Yeah,
coming out in
that's
2021 that
a
I'm
lot of
excited
good
about.
stuff. It's so cool that we
Um,
have movies.
all right, everybody.
Movies.
The Wolf. What's it called again? The Wolf. The
The
Wolf Hour.
Wolf House.
Wolf House. Okay, Wolf House next week. Bronson. We love you.
So good.
Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell everybody.
Tell
Tell
your
everybody in your house. Everybody you know,
every single
everybody.
animal, amphibian, bird,
Everybody.
water bottles. Tell your water bottles.
Tell your water bottles, man.
Yeah, dude.
Uh,
When you're taking a sip, just be like, "Hey, have you heard about Think of Butter?" And it will say yes. And then
yeah.
you should call somebody because your water bottle is speaking to you. That's not normal. Call us. Actually, we'll talk you
Yeah,
through
we'll
it, man.
talk to you.
We'll talk you through
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, subscribe. Subscribe.
it.
All right, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.